Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. If you're ready to be remarkable, let's get going. So today's topic I'm super excited about. It is all about getting paid as a board member and also just as a founder. And this is a big deal for a lot of you. You put in a lot of work and a lot of time, and we don't ever know really if we can get paid or if we'll ever be able to make enough to get paid. And so I had this question come up and I was like, I have to answer this. She might actually be joining us today. I'm not sure, but I'm going to jump right into the content so that you guys have just kind of a good understanding of what's going on, because I don't have a lot of time, but I want to make sure I get through this. So what I'm going to start with are the first 3 things that you need to know before you actually start trying to get paid. Like, there are 3 different ways that you can do this. And then also the last part, I'm going to talk to you about 5 things that you need to do to get paid. And I'll go through each of those. So I plan on being on here for about 20, maybe 30 minutes. We'll see how things go. But yeah, if you're on here, thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for being here. I'd love to see who's on here and if you have anything to say, because I can't always see who you are. So just say like, hey, it's so-and-so if you're on there, or if you want to say something, and then I'll at least know who I'm talking to. Okay, so let's jump into this, you guys. All right, so 3 ways you can legally be paid as a founder and a board member. All right, the first way is we have officers on our board. We all know that. Sometimes we're the board of directors. Sometimes you're the officer, whatever the case. Hi, I don't know who that is, but thank you for saying hey. And thanks for being here. So with these officers on the board, the big deal is, okay, that they can be reimbursed. So if you're on the board and say you paid for some raffle tickets or something that you went and purchased for, say, a fundraiser that's coming up, your board can reimburse you as a board of, as a director on your board. You can be reimbursed. I don't know why I can't talk right now. You can be reimbursed. So that's a good thing. Hi, Whitney. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. And while I'm talking, if I'm on the subject, just ask a question, and then that way I can actually, get that going. Hi, Crystal. Happy Monday to you too. And I saw your post. I haven't been able to respond to it. It really touched me. So thank you so much for that. And I loved your video to all your people. That was very smooth. But anyway, okay. So like I'm saying, as a board of director, you can get paid by being reimbursed. Okay. So for things that you actually paid for, or things that you had to deal with, whatever the case. Okay, you can be reimbursed for that. So that's one way. Let me get back to myself. And hi, I have my mom on here. Hi, Mom. And my brother, my grandmother. Oh my gosh, you guys are too much. Okay, let me see what else is going on here. Let's see. So as an officer, that's number 1, you can be reimbursed. Number 2, you can be a non-voting member. So when you are on your board, you can also say, I just want to be part of the board. I want to hear the discussion. I want to be able to attend every meeting. I want to be considered, part of the board. And this is usually what your staff looks like. They may come to your meetings. They may attend your meetings. Like our program director, she comes to every single one of our meetings. She takes notes for us. She does a lot of things inside of the meeting, but she is not a voting member, but we do pay her. So you can also set yourself up as that too, as more of like a staff member and someone who attends the meetings. So you can participate in discussion. You can participate in a lot of different things, but you cannot vote. So that's a big thing. Okay, 1 second here. Yes, as I said before, I'm saying hello. I don't know who this other person is, but I can't see you when I use the StreamYard streaming. So just let me know your name when you actually say hi, but hi for now. Let's see what else. Let me go back here. Okay. So number 3 is the big one. Now, you can remain on the board And you can even be president, which was part of the question that I was asked earlier. But, and this is a big but, there are there's 5 things that you probably need to do before you start getting paid from your board if you are going to remain on your board and also be getting paid from your nonprofit. So those things I will go into with you. I'm getting the hang of this, you guys. So you got to like work with me on this. I'm sorry. Okay. So number 1, your bylaws. In your bylaws, you want to make sure that you have some sort of determination as to whether you are going to pay your board members or not. And this is unrelated to whether you yourself are going to be paid, but as a board member, it is important to understand whether or not you are being paid for being on a board. And I will do a whole different live about this likely next week, all about paying your board members. But it is a good clause to have in there. And if you've gone through the course, then you know that I talk about this and you know that it's in your bylaws in the template that I have. So I generally would recommend that you don't pay your board members. It's not necessary, but we'll talk about that in another reason, the reasons why and all of that in another live. So the other piece of this is that you also need to make sure that you put in a clause talking about whether the founder can be paid. Now, this does not have to be in there. It's just more of a safeguard for you, so that it's something that you can always point to. And it also makes clear this next one, which is your conflict of interest policy. Now, the conflict of interest policy is extremely important to have. I would say it's even more important than having anything in your bylaws. Now, the reason that you need to have this is because if someone is on your board, let's say someone gives legal advice to you, but they're also a board member, and that's the person that you want to choose to go to for legal advice. This can be considered a conflict of interest, which is a big deal. You do not want to have this. So if you have someone on your board that actually works for you, like maybe they did your website or something, or they provide legal advice, or I don't know, anything. They do your books or something like that. The reason that our program director is not on our board and is not a voting member is because 1, we do pay her. And number 2, it's because she does all of our program expenses. So she works for us as a bookkeeper. And if we were to pay her and she's also a voting member, that creates a conflict of interest. So you never want to have that. If someone is working for you, it's better just to keep them completely separate and make sure that they are being paid completely separate from being on a board, if that makes sense. I hope that made sense. And if it doesn't, ask me a question and I will try to clarify that. Hi, Jennifer. I'm glad you're here. Thank you so much for being here. And can you start on the board and then move to staff later? Absolutely. Absolutely. You can. Absolutely. Yes. I would say that yes, and that's totally a personal choice. I think it's great to be on your board. I think it's good to have voting power on your board. I think it's good for the other board members to see you. I do think it's a pretty big deal for founders to be part of their board and to try to help make some of those decisions and be a true voting member. So I would probably never really recommend that to you. Because there is a way that you can do this. So just let me get to the next part here. Okay, so the create a conflict of interest policy, basically saying something related to if you are doing any business for the organization, really you can't be a board member. And that's just to protect you and to make sure it's very clear, both in the bylaws and in this policy, so that people know that. Like we have a website guy on our board, which we did not use him. He said he'd be willing to do the work for us, but we paid someone else to do it because of a conflict of interest. He's on our board. We didn't feel right about him volunteering to do it as far as time-wise. And we really did want to pay someone so that we could get what we wanted and not have to worry about, being rude to your board member or saying something or offending them or anything like that. And of course, we would try very hard not to do that, but sometimes those things happen. And when you're working with someone more from a professional standpoint, you can be very clear about what you want and what you're looking for, as opposed to working with someone that you know, and maybe they're not doing things the way you want. And so it's even worse when they're your board member, because now it's someone that you want to keep them on your board. Number one, you want to keep them happy, and you don't necessarily want to be paying them while they are on your board. So I always talk about using your board members in a non-working board manner, because I do really feel like their goal and their purpose is to be just a fiscal responsible body that looks over what's happening in your organization, not as your workhorse. If you want a workhorse, then you need to go look for volunteers. And that's just my personal recommendation for all of you, to give your board members and your board of directors the value that they deserve and what they're adding to your organization. So that's just my personal little piece. Okay, so number three. So number three is pretty big. This is really what it comes down to. So if you want to stay on your board, okay, and you want to be paid, you have to go by the IRS requirements, which means that it's reasonable compensation for you for the task that you're doing. So it's not like you're going to leave your full-time job and then whatever you were doing in your full-time job, even if it's the similar thing that you're doing in your nonprofit. If you're leaving your full-time job, you're going to be talking about administrative duties that you're getting paid for. You're going to be talking about whatever the task, any task that you're doing that you're going to get paid for. Like for me, I was doing more secretarial work. I was making calls. I was doing more administrative work. So then I would go and I would look at what's a reasonable compensation for doing the administrative work, because that's really what you're getting paid for, the duties that you're carrying out as a nonprofit. And the other part of that is that you guys, your whole board has to agree on this. So you can't just start taking out funds and, just taking out funds just to be paid a salary. You have to really show the IRS what you're doing and how you came up with that reasonable compensation. Now, if you want to get some ideas, you can go to guidestar.org, which is a great reference for really a lot of things nonprofit. And when you become a 501c3, you really want to get linked under this, but you're allowed to look at anyone's any sort of salary that they pay, anything like that. It's all here. And so you can kind of look to that to see what people are being paid for the duties that they do. So really you would be creating kind of not a resume, but like roles and responsibilities, like a duties page, so that anyone could come in and look at what you do and see that it's reasonably being compensated. Meaning that if you ever got audited by the IRS, they should be able to look at this and say, okay, she does X, Y, and Z, and she's being paid for, a CEO's salary that maybe does traveling around the world and does speaking and all of those types of things, along with just running the organization. So that's what I want you to really keep in mind. This is really, really important. It is IRS requirements that you have reasonable compensation. And so you can't just say like, here's how much my bills are and here's how much I want to be paid. It really has to line up with what you're actually doing and the duties that you do in your organization. And then number 4 is when you have these votes on your compensation, which you will have to have, that's the only way that you can really be paid as number 1, a board member, and number 2, as a founder, and work and doing the actual work. But the most important piece of this is that you have to recuse yourself from those discussions and those votes. So let's just say we're talking about getting paid. Now, I will tell you, when I first talked about getting paid for Launchpad, I was talking about it more for myself at first, because I thought, man, I'm doing so much work, like I need some sort of compensation. And my board was willing to do that. But what you have to do is you have to recuse yourself from those meetings. Like when they're talking about your salary, when they're talking about, is it reasonable? I would recuse yourself from like all conversations related to that. Bring it up to your board first and say, I'd like to, come up with some sort of salary that will be paid to me, some sort of compensation. You can talk about, here's along the lines of what I was thinking in that initial discussion. And you can bring up the duties that you'd be doing and all of those things. But then after they start to actually talk about it, discuss it, vote on it, things like that, then you need to take yourself out of that discussion and allow them to make the decision. Now, this also includes anyone who is related to you on your board. And you guys already know that I feel very strongly, and it's not just me, it's actually the IRS too, that you can only have 49% of your board, has to be less than 49% of your board be a relative, okay, be related to you. So it can't be like your husband or your spouse or something is on the board, or a cousin's on the board, and they're going to be voting on your salary. That does not look good for the IRS. And what we're trying to avoid is any attention from the IRS that is negative relating to you having any sort of overcompensation for funding. And that's kind of the big thing I just want to say really quick is like, everybody should be compensated. I believe that. Like, you should be compensated for the work that you do in your nonprofit. It takes so much work and so much energy and so much focus that it is like a job. It's a real job. So don't discount that piece, and don't be afraid to ask for what you feel that you are worth, right? As far as the duties that you're doing. But take some time to do some research and to figure out exactly what it is that you are going to be doing. Like, write out the list of duties, show people why you should be paid, show people what exactly you're doing every week or every month or every day. Like, show them those types of things so that they can see your worth. Because a lot of times people think, well, you started the nonprofit and, you wanted to do this, but it doesn't always, it's not that cut and dry. It really isn't, as many of you know. Crystal says, if you have a family member on your board of directors, should they also recuse themselves when the time comes to vote? Absolutely. Absolutely. So you should not be adding in a vote. Really, you should be like out of the room. Maybe just like, if you guys meet for that, maybe just don't come to that meeting or leave when that discussion comes up. But there should be no pressure at all when someone is voting on your salary. No pressure at all. Like, if they don't, they should be able to come back with like basically a counter to what you say. So if you say, hey, I should be paid, $2,000 a month because we bring in this amount. And by the way, that is really important too, to make sure that you can actually show like, hey, I'm asking for this because we bring in this amount. We can still pay for our program costs. We can still pay for a lot of other pieces of the organization. Basically, to show that you're still going to be in the black, how you plan to raise money to actually bring in those funds, and how much of those funds you're planning to take out for yourself. And that should be very, very clear so that your board can see that, hey, I do want to get paid, but here's what I'm thinking. I'm still thinking about the organization. It's still number one. We still have to be able to make the program work before I can pay myself. So, it's a good idea to make sure that you're doing this on a small scale when you start. So let's just say that your salary is never going to be over 20% of the earnings that you bring in, or 30%, or whatever you decide, 15, whatever it is, 15, 20, 30, whatever it is. And you know that you can run the program by doing X, Y, and Z, by bringing in all these different fundraisers, and you are assuming that you're going to bring in this amount. This is where a budget really comes in handy. You're assuming you're going to bring in this amount because you're going to do this amount of work, or maybe you already know how much you're bringing in each year. Or maybe you have one fundraiser that funds your entire, okay, I'll read that in just a second. You have one fundraiser that covers your entire admin fees. Now, that is how I run my organization. We depend on donations to get the programs done. We depend on our coffers to be able to pay for the activities that we put kids through. And we have a main fundraiser through the year, every year that pays for the admin fees. So we know every year that if we reach this amount on a fundraiser, then we know that we will be able to keep our program director year after year. So it's good to kind of work backwards too. Like, what would be a reasonable amount that you'd want to get paid? And can you really say that you deserve to be paid that much, like for the duties that you are conducting? And then I would actually set up a budget around that and then try to go and raise those funds. And like I said to you guys many times, we do talk about all of this in the Unleash Your Profit course. If you're interested in trying to figure out how to actually raise funds for your organization on a more consistent basis and be more sustainable, we do actually talk about that that's what we do in the Unleash Your Profit course. So we set your business up to do that. And it's more of like a coaching back and forth to make sure I've got you, you're on the right path, and like your ideas are going to actually work, and we can make all of that come together. So anyway, that's a little bit of a longer course though, but it does really help you guys, and it'll be able to set you up. So one second, I just want to read this before I get into my 5th tip. Did you say you covered this in the bylaws in your class? Yes. Okay, so inside of the Unleash Your Purpose course, which is what I think you're talking about, yes, it talks mostly about in your bylaws. It's already in the templated bylaws. So I have in there whether the founder gets paid or they don't get paid. Your board members is what I'm talking about in that in the course. I'm talking about your board members. So in our bylaws, we do not pay our board members. And that's good to know, because then you're not mixing funds, right? You're not saying like, okay, I get paid this amount and I also get paid from every board meeting that I attend. I feel like that just really kind of muddies the waters. I don't think that's a good thing to do. But again, that's totally up to you. And if you're taking my course and you don't like that, you can absolutely go through the bylaws and you can change that for your own, and you can make your board members paid. What about a co-founder? So your co-founder, if you guys are co-founders and they want to get paid as well, then you just have to do the same exact thing. Your co-founder would need to recuse themselves from the meeting, from everything, that you're talking about related to salary. So that is the big key, that you cannot have any pressure. Like, they should be able to communicate about everything that's going on in relation to your salary, like without you being there openly. Like, I think she's getting paid too much. I think they're asking too much. I don't think this is reasonable. Here are all the duties they say they're doing, but we haven't seen this and this and this be done. I mean, the thing is that your board really holds you accountable, and they should. That is the whole purpose of having a board of directors. So whether it's your co-founder or it's yourself, even when you have a staff member, the staff members should not be in the room when you're talking about their salary, talking about changing their salary, anything related to that, unless the board is comfortable and maybe the staff member brought it up and it has to be discussed. But when it does come to your salary, you have to recuse yourself from that meeting. I think actually even legally you have to recuse yourself from that meeting. And what that just means is like, you're not voting in that one. So you still need to have a quorum outside of you voting on it. And it really is just kind of out of respect for your board as well. So yes, I would keep that in mind. And then lastly, the last tip is taxes. So remember that the nonprofit is not taxed, because you're already getting income that is non-taxable from the IRS. Okay. But once that money is paid to you from the organization, then you, as the person receiving the funds, you are then taxed. Like, that money has to be accounted for. So just remember that part. This is kind of an aside, kind of an extra, but I do want to make sure I say that and mention that to you guys, that it does you will get taxed on that money. So even if you're, taking home $10,000 from the organization, you still have to make sure that you are making enough so that when it's taxed, it's still reasonable compensation. So just remember that. And that's really all the tips I had for you guys today. That really is the idea behind paying yourself. Most important is the bylaws are not important as far as, I don't want to say this. The bylaws they are very important, but they're not important as far as legally binding or something that is going to help you in any way. It's more to let your board know how the organization runs. So if this is something that you want to add into your bylaws, you can. You just need to make it clear. And I don't know if there would be a real reason for that. The biggest part of your bylaws, and I just want to make sure I clarify this, the biggest part of the bylaws in the Unleash Your Purpose class is that you're just trying to make sure that everyone is aware that board members do not get paid, or they do get paid. And if they do get paid, how much they get paid. This is a previously agreed upon, voted on thing from the board of directors. Everyone knows to expect it or not to expect it. And that's basically what your bylaws are doing. It's setting expectations. It's how your organization runs. But you don't turn your bylaws into anyone. It's just how your organization actually is supposed to run based on how you're setting it up. And, according to like your state or according to any laws that are in your city, your state policies, anything like that. It's basically like your nonprofit handbook, if for lack of a better term, that's the best way to put it. So you don't have to have it in there, but it's a good thing to at least have for your board of directors so they know you can or cannot get paid. And if I did receive a salary and in your board of directors, they do get paid, I would also relinquish those funds as well. So yeah, that is essentially the idea. So you can get paid. Exactly. Yes, exactly. Bylaws can be adjusted as things grow. That's exactly right. So that's why I hate to like really focus on the bylaws, because they really are there just to kind of, when you bring on a new member, a new board member, they can read through these, they can understand a little bit more about how your organization works. They can find out when meetings are supposed to be held. It's just an outline of how your organization works, but it doesn't go anywhere. So that's kind of the big thing. It's just for your organization, for you guys to vote on it. So if you guys have any more questions, let me know. I'm really happy that you guys came on today, and I hope that you guys got something from that. I hope that answers a lot of your questions as far as it relates to getting paid as a founder, because these things are really important. You should be getting paid at some point in the life of your organization. It may not be at the very beginning, but I also don't want you to think like, I'm going to start this organization and I can just get paid whatever I want, because that's not really how it works. So that's why it is so important to make sure that you get the right people on your board, to make sure that people understand your purpose and what you're trying to do, how much time you put into this, and why you want to make it your full-time job, and why there should be space for you to pay. But you also must remember that it's your job to create a sustainability plan for your organization and really understand how that's going to work and how you're going to make the program work, how you're going to make the sustainability piece for your income work, all of that. So yeah, that's it. I could go on a tangent about this stuff. But if you guys have any questions about making money or about your board or anything like that, let me know. I will be using these as our next few videos for Tuesdays, I'm sorry. So yeah, just ask away and then I will answer those questions. Anyway, I will let you guys go. It is 12:29. I will let you guys go unless you have another question or anything. So thank you again for being here. I'm so glad. I'm glad it was right on time for you. I really am. I hate for people to struggle with that thought or that question. And I do want to be always, straight up with you guys and let you know sometimes it's easy to do and sometimes it's not a simple answer. So yeah. All right, I will see you guys next week, and this video will be out tomorrow. So if you missed it on the live, you can see it on the replay. All right, I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye. Have a remarkable Monday.